He swore she was just an e-girl, but she knew his moods better than I did. That should have been my first clue, honestly. But I was 22 and in love, so I ignored it. Her username was something like Pixie Nightmare with way too many underscores. They'd been gaming together for 8 months before I even knew she existed. It's not weird, Damien said when I finally asked. We just run raids together. She's good at healing. I wanted to believe him. We'd been together 3 years. He'd never given me a reason to worry. But then I noticed how his whole face would change when her Discord notification popped up. This little smile, gone before I could comment on it. One night, I woke up at 2 a.m. to find his side of the bed empty. The blue glow from his office pulled me down the hallway. Through the crack in the door, I watched him laughing at his screen, headset on, completely absorbed. You always know exactly what to say, he murmured. That tone. I'd never heard him use that tone with me. I went back to bed and pretended to be asleep when he finally came in at 4:30. The thing is, I couldn't prove anything. There were no explicit messages, no photos, just this connection that felt more intimate than anything physical. She knew he was anxious before job interviews, that he needed space when he was overwhelmed, that he hated being touched when he was angry. Things I'd learned over years she just seemed to understand instinctively. You're being paranoid, my best friend Theo said. They've never even met. But that didn't matter. Every inside joke they shared felt like a betrayal. Every time he said, you wouldn't get it, when I asked what they were laughing about. I started tracking his online hours. Pathetic, I know. He was logging on the second I fell asleep, staying up until sunrise on weekends. His dark circles got worse. So did his temper with me. 6 months of this. 6 months of feeling like I was competing with a stranger I'd never see. Then one Tuesday, Damien came home from work early. His company had laid off half the department. He was devastated, crying in a way I'd never seen. I held him, stroked his hair, said all the right things, but he pulled away after 10 minutes and locked himself in his office. 2 hours later, I heard him laughing, actually laughing. That's when I made a decision that would change everything. I created my own account. Different name, different profile picture. I found their usual server and started playing. It took 3 weeks before I was good enough to join their raid group. And that's when I heard her voice for the first time. Young, bubbly, everything I wasn't. But here's the thing. She had no idea who I was. And neither did Damien. For 2 months, I played alongside them, listened to their conversations, watched how they interacted, and slowly I started to understand something that terrified me. She wasn't trying to steal him. She genuinely cared about him as a friend. But Damien, he was falling for someone who didn't even exist the way he thought she did. Then last week, everything shifted. During a late-night raid, she mentioned she was moving. I'll actually be in your city next month, she said casually. We should totally meet up. My blood ran cold. Damien's response was immediate. Absolutely. I'd love that. I listened as they planned to meet at a coffee shop downtown. The same coffee shop where Damien and I had our first date. The irony wasn't lost on me. That night, after he fell asleep, I sent her a private message from my fake account. I need to tell you something about Damien. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then my phone buzzed with a message from a number I didn't recognize. We should talk. This is Violet. And I know who you are. My hands started shaking. How did she know? I'd been so careful. VPN, fake backstory. But somehow she'd figured it out. The next message came through before I could process the first one. Your IP slipped during the last raid. Just for a second, but long enough. I work in cybersecurity. It's literally what I do. I sat there staring at my phone for what felt like hours. Finally, I typed back, how long have you known? 3 weeks. I was waiting to see what you'd do. My stomach twisted. 3 weeks. All those raids where I'd been listening, analyzing, judging, she'd known the entire time. Meet me tomorrow, 2 p.m. There's a diner on 5th and Madison. Come alone. I didn't sleep that night. Damien came to bed around 5 a.m., smelling like energy drinks and that particular stale sweat that comes from gaming marathons. He wrapped his arm around my waist like he always did, and I wanted to scream. Instead, I lay there until his breathing evened out, then slipped out to the living room. The diner she'd chosen was deliberately public, deliberately neutral. I got there 20 minutes early and ordered coffee I couldn't drink. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. She walked in at exactly 2 p.m., and I recognized her immediately from the profile pictures I'd studied obsessively. But seeing her in person was different. She wasn't what I expected. Not younger, not prettier, just different. She had short purple hair and wore a faded band t-shirt. No makeup. The confidence she had in her voice online translated to how she moved through space. Hi, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Her voice was exactly the same. That bubbly tone that had haunted me for months. Hi, I managed. We sat in silence for a moment. She ordered tea. When the waitress left, Violet leaned back and studied me with an expression I couldn't read. So, she said finally, you want to tell me why you've been catfishing your own boyfriend's friend? I wasn't catfishing, I said defensively. I was trying to understand what was happening. And what did you find out? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected anger, accusations, not this calm curiosity. That he's in love with you, I said quietly, and you don't even know it. Violet's expression shifted. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or recognition of something she'd been avoiding. He's not in love with me, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Yes, he is. I've watched him with you for 2 months, the way he lights up when you log on, How he remembers every detail you mention. He stays up all night just to talk to you. That's just friendship, is it? I pulled out my phone, opened Discord, showed her screenshots I'd taken, conversations where Damien shared things he'd never told me, moments of vulnerability I didn't even know existed in him anymore. She stared at the screen, her expression slowly changing. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear, I didn't know it was like that for him, but you knew it was something. She nodded slowly. Yeah, I knew it was something. I just told myself it was friendship, that it was okay because we'd never meet, never cross that line. But now you're moving here. Not for him, she said quickly. I got a job offer. It's a good opportunity, better than what I have now. Does he know that? Or does he think you're coming here for him? The question hung between us. From the look on her face, I knew the answer. What do you want from me? Violet asked finally. You want me to disappear? Stop talking to him? I'd spent weeks imagining this conversation. In my head, I'd been righteous, angry. I'd tell her to stay away from my boyfriend, to find her own life. But sitting across from her, seeing the genuine confusion and guilt in her eyes, I realized something. I don't know, I admitted. I thought I wanted that. But now I think maybe I just wanted to understand. Understand what? Why you? Why her instead of me? What you have that I don't. Violet was quiet for a long moment. You want the truth? I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I did. I think Damien fell in love with the version of himself he gets to be online. Not me. Just who he is when there are no consequences, no real-world pressure. I'm just the person who happens to be there. The words hit harder than any accusation could have. Because she was right. The Damien who showed up for raids was the one I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. Funny, vulnerable, present. Somewhere along the way, that person had stopped existing in our apartment. When did he stop being like that with you? Violet asked gently. I don't know. Gradually, I guess. Work got stressful. We moved in together. Life just became about bills and groceries, and whose turn it was to do the dishes. And online, none of that exists. No, I said. Online, he gets to be whoever he wants. We sat there for a while, two strangers connected by the same person in completely different ways. Finally, Violet reached across the table and touched my hand. I'm not going to meet him, she said. At the coffee shop. I'll cancel. Why? Because this isn't what I wanted either. I liked having a friend, someone to play games with. I didn't sign up to be the other woman, even if it's just emotional. He'll ask why you canceled. I'll tell him the truth, that I realized our friendship crossed some boundaries it shouldn't have. Relief flooded through me, but it was followed immediately by something else. Dread, maybe, because I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It won't fix us, I said. Me and Damien. Probably not, Violet agreed. But at least it'll be honest. She was right. Honesty. That's what had been missing. Not just between Damien and me, but in how I'd been handling this whole situation. I'm sorry, I said suddenly, for the fake account, for spying on you both. That was wrong. It was desperate, Violet corrected. There's a difference. We talked for another hour. About gaming, about relationships, about the weird space the internet creates where connections feel more real than real life sometimes. When we finally left the diner, we exchanged real numbers. Stay in touch, she said, if you want. As ourselves this time. I nodded. Watching her walk away, I felt something shift. Not resolution exactly, but clarity. That night, Damien came home at his usual time. I'd made dinner, set the table. When he walked in and saw the setup, he looked suspicious. What's this about? We need to talk, I said. Those 4 words. The death knell of any relationship. He went pale. About what? Sit down. He did, moving like he was walking to his own execution. I sat across from him, the same position I'd been in with Violet hours earlier. I know about Violet, I said. His face went through several emotions at once. Shock, guilt, defensiveness. Nothing happened. We're just friends. I know. I've been listening to your conversations for 2 months. Now genuine shock. What? I told him everything. The fake account, joining their raids, listening to their conversations. His face grew darker with every word. You spied on me? His voice was dangerously quiet. Yes. That's insane. That's actually insane. You're right. It was. But you know what else is insane? Waking up at 2 a.m. and finding my boyfriend laughing with another woman in the next room. Watching you put more effort into a friendship with someone you've never met than into our relationship. Feeling like a ghost in my own apartment. She's just a friend, he insisted. But there was no conviction behind it anymore. You're in love with her, Damien. Maybe you don't want to admit it, but you are. I'm not. I love you. Do you? The question came out softer than I intended, because it doesn't feel that way. It hasn't for a long time. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. The silence stretched between us, heavy with all the things we'd been avoiding for months. When did we stop being us? He asked finally. I don't know. Somewhere between moving in together and you getting laid off. Maybe before that. Maybe we've been pretending longer than either of us wants to admit. Damien put his head in his hands. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. I didn't mean for this to happen. With Violet, I mean. It started as just gaming. Then she was easy to talk to. She didn't judge me for being anxious or overwhelmed. She just listened. I would have listened. Would you, though? Really? Because every time I tried to talk about work stress or feeling lost, you'd give me solutions. Fix-it mode. Violet just let me feel things. The words stung because they were true. I did do that. Tried to solve instead of just being present. I met her today, I said. Violet. His head snapped up. What? She figured out who I was. We met at a diner, talked for a while. About what? About you. About this whole mess. She's canceling your coffee date. Something crossed his face. Disappointment? Definitely. Maybe relief too. She doesn't want to be the reason we fall apart, I continued. But Damien, we're already falling apart. She's just a symptom, not the cause. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded. So what do we do? I don't know. Couples therapy, maybe? Or we admit this isn't working and figure out how to untangle our lives. Is that what you want? To break up? I looked at him. Really looked at him. This person I'd loved for 3 years. Who I'd built a life with. Made plans with. Who I didn't really know anymore. I want us to be honest, I said. About what this is. About what we both want. No more pretending everything's fine when it's not. Okay, he said quietly. Honesty. Did you ever physically cheat on me? No, never, I swear. I believed him. Whatever else was true, I didn't think he'd lie about that. But if Violet had been here, I pushed. If she'd shown up to that coffee date, would you have kissed her? He looked away. That was answer enough. I don't know, he said finally. Maybe. Probably. I don't know what I would have done. At least it was honest. I need you to be honest about something too, he said. This thing with the fake account. That's not okay. That's really not okay. I know. No, I don't think you do. You violated my privacy. You lied to me and to Violet. You manipulated both of us. He wasn't wrong. In my desperation to understand what was happening, I'd crossed lines I couldn't uncross. You're right, I said. It was wrong. I was terrified and desperate, but that doesn't make it okay. We sat there in our living room, with cold dinner between us and 3 years of history heavy in the air. All the movie nights and inside jokes, all the plans we'd made for a future that suddenly felt impossible. I think I need some space, Damien said eventually, to figure things out. Okay, maybe I'll stay at my brother's for a few days. I nodded. Part of me wanted to fight, to say we could work through this together. But the bigger part knew he was right. We both needed space to think. He packed a bag that night. I watched from the bedroom doorway as he threw clothes into his old gym duffel. He moved like he was in a trance, mechanical and distant. At the door, he paused. I'm sorry, for all of this. For checking out of us without telling you. I'm sorry too, for the spying, for letting us get this bad before saying anything. He left without kissing me goodbye. I heard his car start in the parking lot, listened as it faded into the distance. The apartment felt enormous and suffocating all at once. I sat on the couch where we'd watched countless shows together, where he'd proposed to me 8 months ago with a ring I was still wearing. My phone buzzed. A text from Violet. Did you talk to him? Yeah. How'd it go? He's staying at his brother's. We're taking a break. I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I really am. I know. You want to talk? It was a strange offer. This woman who'd been part of the problem, now offering comfort. But maybe that's what happened when you stripped away pretense. You found the people who understood. Not tonight, but maybe soon. Okay, I'm here if you need. I set my phone down and looked around the apartment, evidence of Damien everywhere. His books on the shelf, his jacket on the chair, his coffee mug in the sink, but also mine. My plants on the windowsill, my photos on the wall, my life that had existed before him and would continue after. The next few days were strange. I went to work, came home to the empty apartment, tried to figure out what I wanted. Damien texted occasionally. Nothing deep, just checking in. I did the same. Theo came over 3 days later with pizza and wine. Okay, spill, he said, settling onto the couch. What happened? I told him everything. All of it. The fake account. Meeting Violet. The conversation with Damien. He listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. Damn, he said finally. That's a whole mess. Yeah. You know what, though? I'm kind of proud of you. I looked at him in surprise. For what? Catfishing my boyfriend's friend? No, for facing it. For not just pretending everything was fine. You know how many people would have just let this fester until they exploded or imploded? I did let it fester. For 6 months. But then you did something about it. Even if that something was kind of unhinged. I laughed, despite myself. Thanks, I think. So what now? You getting back together? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. We're supposed to talk this weekend. What do you want to happen? No one had asked me that yet. Not really. What did I want? I want him to be the person he is online, I said slowly. But in real life, with me, I want us to actually talk instead of just coexisting. I want to feel like I matter to him the way Violet did. But I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if we can get back there. Or if trying would just be prolonging something that's already over. Theo nodded. That's fair? You know what I think? What? I think you're being more honest with yourself right now than you have been in a year. Whatever you decide, that's the right thing to be doing. He stayed for a few more hours, watching bad reality TV with me and making snarky comments that almost made everything feel normal. When he left, I felt slightly less alone. Saturday came. Damien texted in the morning. Can I come over around 2? Sure. I spent the morning cleaning frantically, then realized how stupid that was and stopped. This wasn't a date. This was potentially the end of my relationship. He arrived exactly at 2. I'd made coffee, which felt simultaneously too formal and not formal enough. We sat at the kitchen table like strangers negotiating a business deal. I've been thinking a lot, he started. Me too. I talked to Violet, actually talked to her, about everything. My stomach clenched. And she told me what you two discussed, about how I was using the online space to escape, how I'd checked out of our relationship without even realizing it. What did you say? That she was right. About all of it. He looked down at his coffee. I've been treating you like a roommate, like someone I coexist with instead of someone I chose to build a life with. Why? He was quiet for a long time. I think I was scared of the real stuff, the mundane parts of life that aren't exciting or romantic. Online, everything stays in this perfect bubble where nothing bad happens and I can just be the fun version of myself. But real life isn't like that. No, I agreed. It's not. I miss us, he said, looking up at me. The US from 3 years ago, when everything was new and exciting, when we'd stay up all night talking about stupid stuff, when I couldn't wait to see you. I miss that too. But Damien, we can't just go back to the beginning. We have to figure out how to move forward. I know. I've been thinking about that too. I think I need therapy. Individual, I mean. To figure out why I run away when things get hard. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah? And I think we need it together too, if you're willing, to actually work on this instead of just hoping it gets better on its own. I'm willing, I said, but I need you to actually show up. Not just physically, but emotionally. I need you to be present in our relationship. I will. I want to. I'm so sorry it took almost losing you to realize what I was doing. I'm sorry too. For the spying. For not just talking to you when I noticed things changing. For trying to fix everything instead of just being with you through it. Can we try again? He asked. Like actually try? I looked at him, saw the genuine remorse in his eyes, the vulnerability, but I also saw the past 6 months. The late nights alone, the feeling of competing with someone who didn't even want to compete, the slow erosion of us. I want to, I said honestly, but I'm scared. What if we fall back into the same patterns? What if therapy doesn't work? What if we're just prolonging the inevitable? Then at least we'll know we tried, he said. Really tried, not just coasted. He was right. We owed ourselves that much. Okay, I said. Let's try. The relief on his face was palpable. Really? Really. But Damien, I need some things to be different. Starting now. Anything. I need you to cut back on the gaming. Not stop completely, but it can't be every night until sunrise. I need you in bed with me sometimes. I need you to exist in the real world with me. He nodded. Done. And I need transparency. With Violet. With anyone else you're talking to. I'm not saying you can't have friends, but I need to not feel like I'm on the outside of your life. I get that. And honestly, I think I need some distance from Violet anyway. Not forever, but for now. To focus on us. Did she say she was okay with that? She suggested it, actually. Said we both need to figure out what's real without the digital space complicating things. I felt a strange gratitude toward this woman I'd met once, who'd been part of the problem, and somehow part of the solution too. There's one more thing, I said. What? I need you to delete the fake account. Not because I don't trust you, but because I don't trust myself. I need to know I'm not monitoring you, that I'm actually choosing to trust you. Okay, do it now. Let me see. I pulled out my phone, logged into the account I'd created, and deleted it right there. Damien watched as confirmation messages popped up, as 2 months of deception disappeared. There, I said. Gone. Thank you for being honest about all of this. It would have been easier to just pretend it never happened. Easier isn't better, I said. Not anymore. He reached across the table and took my hand. It felt familiar and strange all at once. Can I come home? He asked. Yeah, you can come home. That night, we lay in bed together for the first time in almost a week. It wasn't magical or romantic. We were both too aware of everything that had happened, but it was honest. I'm going to mess up, he said in the darkness. Probably a lot. I'm going to forget to be present sometimes or fall into old patterns. I know. I will too. But we'll keep trying? We'll keep trying. The next morning, Damien researched therapists while I made breakfast. We found one who specialized in couples counseling and had availability the following week. Small steps, but they were forward. Violet texted me later that day. How'd it go? We're going to try again. Therapy and everything. Good. I'm glad. You both deserve to figure it out. Thank you for being honest with me. And with him. Of course. And hey, when you guys are in a better place, maybe we can all actually be friends, like normal people instead of this weird digital triangle. Maybe, I said, and I meant it. The first therapy session was awkward. We sat on opposite ends of a couch in a too-warm office while a woman named Dr. Patricia Chen asked us questions about our relationship, how we met when things changed, what we wanted moving forward. I notice you're both being very careful with each other, she observed. Like you're afraid to say the wrong thing. She was right. We were tiptoeing around each other, trying so hard not to make things worse that we weren't really making them better either. That's normal after a crisis, Dr. Chen continued, but it's not sustainable. At some point, you'll need to risk being vulnerable again. Risk conflict, even. Otherwise, you're just performing a relationship instead of having one. Over the following weeks, therapy became our space to actually talk, to say the hard things, to fight productively instead of letting resentment build. It wasn't easy. Some sessions I left feeling worse than when I'd arrived. But slowly, things started shifting. Damien started coming to bed earlier. Not every night, but most nights. We talk before falling asleep. Actually talk. about our days and our fears and the stupid things that made us laugh. He told me about his anxieties with work. I told him about feeling inadequate compared to this imaginary version of someone else. You were never competing with her, he said one night. You were competing with an escape, a fantasy where I didn't have to be an adult or deal with real problems. That's not your fault. But I could have made our real life better, more engaging. I let us get boring too. We both did. That's on both of us. I stopped tracking his online time. Not because I wasn't tempted, but because I made a conscious choice to trust instead of verify. Some days it was easy. Some days it felt impossible. But I kept choosing it. 2 months after our crisis, Violet moved to our city for her new job. She texted to let me know, asked if we wanted to meet for coffee. Actually, meet, as real people instead of avatars or adversaries. Damien and I discussed it in therapy. How do you feel about seeing her? Dr. Chen asked him. Nervous, he admitted. But also like it might be good. To demystify the whole thing. See her as a regular person instead of this perfect escape. And you? Dr. Chen turned to me. Scared, but also curious. I talked to her once and she was normal, nice even. Maybe we could actually be friends. What would friendship with her give you? Dr. Chen asked. I thought about it. Proof that I'm not crazy, that this whole situation was complicated for everyone, not just me, and maybe someone who actually understands what we went through. We met at a different coffee shop, neutral territory. Violet looked nervous when she walked in. She spotted us and waved tentatively. Hi, she said, sliding into the chair across from us. This is weird, right? This is definitely weird. So weird, I agreed, and we all laughed. The awkwardness lasted about 5 minutes. Then Violet told a story about her new job, about a coworker who kept microwaving fish in the office kitchen. Damien countered with a story about his new manager who only communicated in sports metaphors. I added my own horror story about a client who thought our company was responsible for fixing her personal computer. We talked for 2 hours. About work, about the city, about everything except the elephant in the room until finally Violet brought it up. So I know this is awkward, she said. The whole how we all know each other thing. But I want to be clear. I'm not here to complicate your lives. I genuinely think we could all be friends if we can get past the weirdness. I'd like that, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. Me too, Damien added. And somehow we were friends. It took time, and there were moments of jealousy or insecurity I had to work through. Times when I'd see Damien laugh at something Violet said and feel that old fear creeping back. But I'd talk about it in therapy, or sometimes directly with Damien, and we'd work through it. Violet started dating someone 3 months later, a software engineer she met through work. She brought him to dinner at our apartment, and I watched Damien's reaction carefully. There was maybe a flicker of something, but mostly he just seemed happy for her. You okay? I asked him later after they'd left. Yeah, he said. I really am. It's weird. I built her up so much in my head as this perfect thing, but she's just a person. A cool person, but just a person. And us? We're just people too? He pulled me close. Yeah, but you're my people. The person I choose every day, even on the boring days. Especially on the boring days. We still went to therapy. Even after things stabilized, we kept going. Dr. Chen said that was a good sign, using the tools before we needed crisis intervention. A year after everything fell apart, Damien and I were sitting on our couch watching some mindless show when his phone buzzed with a Discord notification. He glanced at it, then back at the TV. You're not going to check that? I asked. It can wait, he said. This episode's almost over. Such a small thing, but it felt monumental. Later, when the show ended, he did check his messages. Violet had sent a funny meme to their group chat. He showed it to me, laughed, sent back a response. Then he put his phone down and asked what I wanted for dinner. That's what healing looked like, I realized. Not grand gestures or dramatic changes, just small moments of choosing to be present, of prioritizing the real over the escape. We weren't perfect. We still fought sometimes, still had moments where old patterns crept back, but we recognized them now, called them out, worked through them instead of letting them fester. On our 4-year anniversary, Damien planned a whole thing. Dinner at the restaurant where we had our first real date, not the coffee shop, but the Italian place we'd gone to after walking around the city for hours. He was nervous the whole meal, fidgeting with his napkin. You okay? I asked. Yeah, I wanted tonight to be perfect. It is perfect. I haven't even done the thing yet. I laughed. What thing? He reached into his jacket pocket and my heart stopped. But instead of a ring box, he pulled out an envelope. I wrote you something, he said, handing it to me. I'm not good at big speeches, but I wanted to tell you what this year has meant to me. Inside was a letter, handwritten on nice stationery. I read it right there at the table while he watched nervously. It talked about how I'd saved our relationship by refusing to let it die quietly, how the crisis had been the best worst thing that ever happened to us, how he fell in love with me all over again, watching me be brave enough to demand better. I wanted to ask you something, he said when I finished reading, tears streaming down my face. Okay, will you marry me? Again, I mean, will you still marry me, knowing all the ways I've messed up and will probably mess up again? I laughed through the tears. Yes, obviously yes. We'd technically been engaged already, but this felt different, like we were choosing each other with full knowledge of who we were, not who we hoped to be. The wedding planning was chaotic and stressful and everything wedding planning is supposed to be, but we got through it together. Violet was invited, of course, with her boyfriend. Theo was best man. My sister did a reading. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I found myself thinking about that night I'd watched Damien through the crack in his office door, laughing at his screen, how small and invisible I'd felt, how desperate. You okay? Damien's voice startled me. He'd come to find me on the balcony of the hotel. Aren't we not supposed to see each other? I asked. Since when do we follow traditions? He wrapped his arms around me from behind. What are you thinking about? Everything. How we almost lost this. How close we came to giving up. But we didn't. No, I agreed. We didn't. You know what I think about sometimes? He said. That fake account. How you cared enough to do something completely unhinged just to understand what was happening. That's love. Messy, imperfect, kind of crazy love. Are you seriously romanticizing my catfishing right now? He laughed. Maybe a little, but I'm serious. You fought for us when I'd already checked out. That means something. We both fought, I corrected. In the end. In the end, he agreed. We stood there in the darkness, wrapped around each other, thinking about everything that had brought us to this moment. All the mistakes and miscommunications, the late-night gaming sessions, and the loneliness and the desperate measures, the honesty that nearly broke us and ultimately saved us. I'm glad we're doing this, I said. Me too. Though I'm terrified I'm going to cry during the vows. Oh, you definitely are. I've seen you cry at dog food commercials. He laughed, and I felt it vibrate through his chest into my back. This person who I'd almost lost, who I'd fought for, who'd fought for us too. Not perfect, but trying. Always trying. The wedding was beautiful. Damien did cry during the vows. So did I. Violet caught the bouquet and made a joke about how ironic that was. Theo gave a speech about how he'd known we'd figure it out because we were both too stubborn to quit. During our first dance, Damien whispered in my ear, "Thank you." For what? For not giving up on us. For being brave enough to confront the mess instead of running from it. We did that together, I said. We did, he agreed. But you started it. You took the first step. Maybe he was right. Maybe that fake account, as wrong as it was, had been the catalyst we needed. Not the spying itself, but the decision to stop being passive, to demand better, to risk everything rather than slowly lose it all. Years later, when people asked how we made our marriage work, we'd joke about the gamer girl who almost broke us up but ended up being our best friend. We'd talk about couples therapy like it was as normal as date night. We'd be honest about the work it took, the conversations that hurt, the times we almost quit. Because that's the thing about love. The real kind, not the fantasy version. It's messy and hard and requires showing up every single day. It's choosing each other when it's boring and difficult and unglamorous. It's fighting for the relationship even when fighting feels impossible. And sometimes it's creating a fake account to spy on your boyfriend's friend because you're desperate and scared and don't know what else to do. Not proud of it, but it happened. And somehow, we turned that disaster into something real. That's what I learned through all of this. Love isn't about perfection. It's not about never making mistakes or never hurting each other. It's about what you do after the mistakes, after the hurt, whether you run or stay, whether you demand better or settle for less, whether you fight or surrender. Damien and I chose to fight. Messily, imperfectly, but we fought. And that made all the difference.